I'm Amir Hamza, and I'm the Senior Project Manager for Rooftop Energy. The project in focus today would be our SIG Combi Block project here in KSA. And it was not only challenging, but also unique from several point of views. It's also redefining the local renewable sector in KSA, in Riyadh specifically, and in Modan, which is the industrial area where this industrial complex is located. So this is the first renewable solar installation. And the project was challenging with regards not only to the evolving regulatory infrastructure that we see, but also with regards to the local conditions of execution. It's an industrial complex, so a lot of space was not available. So we could not pick multiple of smaller inverters. So we had to finally settle with the 125 kilowatt Sungrow. So basically, this is a 2 megawatt DC project and 620 watts Jinko panels for this. We had the 125 kilowatt Sungrow inverters for this. We had to use 13 inverters. And of course, the idea was to see how we can distribute the strengths based on this inverter size.
Welcome to Setting the Storm here on ENF Trade TV. I'm your host, Tremaine. In today's episode, we're joined by a company all the way from the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. So let's welcome Yellow Door Energy. Hi, Amir. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Charmaine. Rooftop Energy is basically a renewable energy development organization. We have an amazing portfolio of around 150 projects across the MENA and South Africa region. And these 150 projects translate to around 450 megawatts of solar. Good to be part of this episode today.
So for a long-term project like SIG Combi Block, how did you decide which components to use?
Sure, good question. So, all right, so as Rooftop Energy Development Organization, it's really important for us that we work with tier 1 manufacturers. For us, reliability on their performance of the equipment is the most crucial. Then, of course, there are considerations of cost and timeline. The timeline of the project was really important because we had some commitments made to the customer, and it was our first project in Saudi. So timeline, again, the most crucial factor, because of which we picked the equipment that we picked, which was the modules from Jinko, inverters from Sungrow, meteor control for monitoring systems.
Great insight on that. The project had to account for stronger wind load requirements. So what changes had the biggest impact on the mounting design?
Sure, good question. So basically, typically in the region where we work with wind speeds of up to 160 kilometers per hour, which is the norm. However, recently a revision of the Saudi building code, and they have increased the wind speed load from the typical 160 kilometer per hour to 190 kilometer per hour. So of course, based on this, we had to get a proper third-party structural assessment done from a regulatory approved structural consultant who was approved by the quality. So that was done. We had to optimize, change our mounting structure. We use a 120 aluminium long rail over short rail configuration for this project. And another thing that we had to do and make sure was that the mounting structure is bolted onto the purlins of the steel structure of the manufacturer organization instead of just putting them on the sandwich panel. So these multiple things had to be taken into consideration based on the fact that we had a high wind speed load consideration for this site.
I see. Now, during the third-party structural assessment, one roof was found to need additional reinforcement. Amir, how did the team solve that without reducing the system size?
Yes. So when we got the third-party structural assessment done, so this project is scattered over 4 roofs within the same premises. But one of the roofs, it turned out that the dynamic load would fail above 160 kilometer per hour. So the recommendation from the consultant was that you do not use this roof, or you basically do some alterations or fix this roof structure. That the system size should not reduce from the committed 2 megawatts. The consultant proposed a solution which was doing bracing cables within the steel structure. The customer, SIG, was, because it's a safety concern, and SIG really understanding of this, they implemented the cable support system for their steel structure. We ran another simulation of the steel structure. It passed, and this is how we were able to mitigate the entire thing without changing the layouts, without reducing the system size, which was, I think, a big achievement considering this bottleneck that we had faced.
And to keep the rooftop electrically balanced and of course practical to install, how did you divide the arrays across strings, MPPTs, and inverter groups?
So first and foremost for us is the OEM recommendation was to make sure that we do not overload our inverters. We do not overload the MPPTs. These were 5 different roofs. Some of them had different tilt angles. Some of them had a 5-degree tilt and some of them had a 3-degree tilt. So we had to make sure that the roofs are categorized in a way that we have similar tilt angle roofs are feeding a same inverter instead, so that in order to minimize the mismatch loss that could possibly arise as per the OEM recommendation and the site conditions, and the fact that we have this is a high temperature zone GCC, we had to make sure that we don't overload. So 17 to 18 panels per string was decided. Having said these 3 parameters, we had to make sure the layout and the inverter configuration follows these 3 criteria.
Now, you also use Solaris weather data for the site. Amir, why was reliable weather data so important for estimating the plant's real-world performance?
It was really important for us to make sure that the inputs coming into our design are 100% reliable. So we picked not only their fee source, we paid for the data for GIS Combat Block area, so that the data that we have is reliable 100%. Things have serious implications, specifically the temperature, the soiling, and those things have very serious implications on the energy yield that you're going to have. So it was important for us to look at all the possible options and make sure that we pick the most reliable one, which in our case was Solar GIS.
Now let's go further. The customer requested a revision to the inverter location, which affected cable routing and voltage drop calculations. So what was the hardest part of managing that redesign so late in the project?
So of course that was a setback initially for us because by that time we had already asked our multiple EPCs to visit the site, do the preliminary design, give their pricing already. And we had already picked one of the shortlisted EPCs for the project. The biggest challenge that we faced was that we were expecting that maybe the EPC would come up with a change order, and have a commercial implication on the project. Now the main consideration was the voltage drop considerations, but we try to ensure that our projects have total voltage drop of 3% on AC and DC side cumulatively. So it was important that we do not go beyond this as well. A lot of negotiations happened with the EPC to make sure that the commercial implications are not passed on, because it was too late in the project cycle to have any kind of commercial implication on either the IRR or the customer as well. We didn't want to go back to the customer asking for a change or any kind of that change order. So that's how we were eventually able to mitigate this.
So during the construction, did you run into any supply or site readiness bottlenecks? And how did you prevent them from delaying the energization?
Sure, of course, in project management, things can go wrong, and things usually do go wrong, and that's where you have to be very prompt. You have to be on your toes, and you have to come up with ways how to mitigate that. For us, what happened was that we did a very minor thing, which is basically the grounding lugs, the tiny grounding lugs between panels. We're almost done with our installation. AC cables, DC cables, all of that has been done, and we find out that those lugs they're not there. We were able to manage this within a week, and we were able to do the grounding of the project just before the energization of the project. Another challenge that we had was, again, from a supplier of the safety lifelines. We had done the negotiation bits, everything was fine, and we were requesting for third-party certifications from them. They were unable to provide us third-party certificates, but my project has to move forward. So what we did interim was that instead of the safety lifeline, we were able to get safety anchor points, and we installed them all across the roof without affecting the overall timeline of the projects. But so it did not affect the project timeline overall. Yeah.
Aside from the misgrounding logs and the client requested changes, were there any regulatory challenges that affected the way the project was executed?
So I think, I think another thing that we had to tackle with very early on in the project is that the Saudi regulatory front has been evolving. We kicked off the project right when this digitization process was ongoing. So that was something that we had to deal with, but it has improved tremendously. Now the entire process is paperless. So a lot of regulatory change and regulatory evolution landscape was happening when this project has. So we had to keep abreast with the changing regulation. So again, that was something that we had to continuously be in touch with regards to this project execution as well.
And during the pre-commissioning, which tests were key to spotting and fixing issues before the system went operational?
So there were multiple tiers of testing and commissioning that we had to do. First, the typical, all the mega testing, the continuity testing, the grounding testing, all of those are the cold tests that we do before we energize the project. And then once we have comfort that all IEC required tests have been conducted satisfactorily, we do a temporary energization of the project for 30 to 40 minutes, during which we monitor not only the performance of the system, we monitor any alarms, we monitor the interface protection device, and all of this data is then uploaded to the regulator's platform, and they inspect it, they review it, and then they come to the site, they do an visual inspection, and that's when you get an approval from them to fully energize the system. And we did all of these testing and commissioning before we were able to energize the project.
And of course, every difficult project teaches a lesson, right? So looking back, what is that one thing that you would never overlook again? And how has it changed your approach to your project planning?
So, of course, never underestimate the small things. We always look at where are the PV panels, where are the inverters, where are these things. But it's the small things that can really become your roadblock. They can really become your, let's say, critical path items. So, for example, for this project, critical path was supposed to be walkways, PV panels, inverters, and then these small lugs became critical path items. So again, never underestimate these things. And this was a lesson learned from our end. We now make sure that nothing gets slipped through the cracks, and we make sure that everything is as important as the other for such a project.
Okay, Amir. Now we want to know, like, on a personal note, how would you describe your journey in the solar industry, and what would be your predictions in the near future, especially in the Middle East?
The shift to renewable energy was very much aligned with my personal growth, and I've loved every moment of it. However, from a general point of view with regards to how that sector is evolving, I think we've seen unparalleled growth in renewable, especially in solar energy. So solar energy has become the cheapest form of energy known to humanity ever. So the amount of improvement in efficiency, the amount of optimization of costs, it is unparalleled. Platform people have realized the importance of being energy independent, being not entirely dependent on the grid, not being dependent on fossil fuels. So I think this trend that we have seen in the last decade, it's only going to continue to increase and gain more and more momentum, especially in this region, GCC region, where we are based in.
And with all the recent regional disruptions in the Middle East, Amir, I want to know from you, like, how has the solar industry been affected? And have there been projects that you handle which was affected or has been delayed or put on hold? And how is Yellow Door Energy adapting to it?
Great question. And yes, this is something that, of course, was most people were not planning for. Most people did not have contingencies for. We are happy to report that no project has been put on hold. Yes, there have been commercial implications. Yes, the insurance cost has gone up. Yes, the logistics cost has gone up. But it's not a dead end. You have to pivot. You have to look at your options that you have. We haven't put a full stop to our projects. No projects have been scrapped. We know that, okay, we will be able to emerge from the situation within this much timeline. So yeah, that's how we have mitigated the current situation.
So that's a wrap for today's episode, Amir. Thank you so much to you and to the whole team of Yellow Door Energy for joining us on the show.
It has been a delight having a conversation with you. I really enjoyed. Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
This has been Sailing the Storm, only on ENF Train TV.